So we're gonna look at Aiki, Age, Aiki, Sage to start with. And just start static. See if you can use your expansion and your, okay, and then forward. And just go into that front knee. Just get heavy. Okay. So do not try and lift the hand. Don't let me do that. Don't lift the hands. Okay. It's a pivot point. You're going in underneath, then out, and then down. The down's entirely coming from your body. There's no downward effort in the arms. Okay. Okay, give it a try. So you've got to see these shoulders rise, and then you've got to see it go behind him. It's got to go back there. So even if you get him up and you don't go back there, you're just going to return him to where he was. So it's in and up, out, and down. And you should see his elbows and his butt go out. And the way they'll beat that, if they are very responsive, is they shoot their feet out. We've talked about that before. You know, it's not necessarily you're going to dump this guy. But of course, if he shoots his feet out in order not to fall, he just left his face where your knee is, which is not the smartest thing to have done. So he's better off taking the back fall. Now, once again, this is what I was just saying. If you don't see him go up, he's not ready to go down. Okay. So knees and elbows in underneath them. And the spiral here. There, the shoulders are up. But even now, if I go back down, he just returns to where he was. So it has to go in and up, more in and down. And there it goes. You watch a Gleason sensei, he'll really exaggerate it so you can see it. You know, when you're first learning it, he'll go in here and he'll take this all the way out there and then drop you. You know, later, obviously, you don't have to do that as physically large as that. It becomes your intent. There it is. There it is. Here's your wrist bow. See, everybody tries, what they end up doing is they do one dimension at a time. So they're trying to go up. Don't give it to me. They're trying to go up, or they try and go in. But the up and the in have to happen at the same time. If you put your hand on my elbow, this is why he goes up, because you go down. If you come on the side here, both hands and push up. Okay. So if you watch, you're going to go down as he goes up. Then this goes in, and then you'll go up when he goes down. This didn't move. This is pivoting around that spot. So this goes in, she goes up. This drops, this goes up, this goes down. That's the elbow opening up. You're getting him up. But then when you go to drop him, you're dropping him basically into his feet here. This has to go behind him. So there's not only is there a step, but there's a rowing exercise, the weight shift that goes with that. So I'm sending that out. Now when I slide this foot forward, it starts to go behind him, but that has to keep going. And then the elbows open up. See his elbows going behind him? Go behind him right now. Put both your hands under his elbows. This is coming out and down. So if you were there through the whole thing, you'd be buckling too. People lose the forward. It's really not that hard once you get it. I mean, okay, once again, under stress. Right now, this is about the most controlled that you can get. Everything gets harder when you're under stress because you're going to tense up, and that everything goes out the window if you tense up. But it really is that easy once you get it.
I don't do that very well.
But it is harder because it's got to keep going forward, and that's the problem. That everybody, the brain, they get coming in underneath them and using their legs to do that. But what happens when they come here is they push down. And I lost it. I pushed that right down into your hips. It didn't keep going forward. It has to keep going forward, 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 forward. So even though it's going down now, I'm not really going down. I'm going out. But I'm changing my spine angle and dropping into the knee. So this is a direction, but not a power. But everybody tries to go down. And it either won't go down, or if it does go down, it goes right back into their legs and they're stable again. Let's take Ikkyo, and we're going to do this static so that you can really see it. Because what I want to do is go through kind of all the places where you see this. So we'll start here. I'm going to do the triangle irimi. So 1. And on this 1, when you make that step, you are coming in underneath him. Here's the Aikisage. This is the Aikisage. If he's not getting light already, you're not going to get the Ikkyo. You're going to get his arm. Okay. Aikisage, sorry. So this is, the elbow hand's the most important one because it connects and touches his far side. It's going across him on the Ikkyo curve. But if you push, it won't go. Even though I'm trying to give it direction over there. It's the elbows coming in underneath, just like we were just doing. The elbow's coming in here, and your body's moving forward. So he goes up. And this one's helping too, but it's not as crucial. So 1, he gets light. 2, 3, he gets lighter. Core turn, and then Aikisage. One, 2, 3, and Aikisage. Give it a try. This is why Aikisage is so important, because it's actually in everything. And if you don't, people who are doing technique and they can't tell you where it is, it's probably not there. Right now, they're more or less dropping at the same time. Now, Gleason Sensei talks about leading, following, leading, following. So technically, what opens her up is this leading hand. Okay. And the elbow hand is what's coming in and catching her Ikkyo curve. So I could do the whole Ikkyo without this other hand. Just with the elbow hand. It's the more important hand. But on this version, they're somewhat operating at the same time. This one's a little still leading a little bit, and this is still following, but it's not as radical as some of the versions where the leading hand can drop. If this was moving and she was coming in really hard, I might have this hand really drop, and this hand would just be taking it at the end. There's just a lot of variations on Ikkyo, but this basic one, Aikiyage, Aikisage, they're both Aikiyage. And then as I move in, they're both Aikisage. Okay, does that answer your question?
I had already moved this foot.
Then it wasn't where it needed to be.
Right.
It needs to be out here. So you've changed this, okay? So if he's still straight here, it didn't matter that you moved that foot, okay? At least for this variation. So this foot and this hand, we should start here and this should move out to that point. It should be on that line. Then 2, 3, as I move in, I'm going across the line here. And this is dumping. So that first step is what's going to take him from his strong line and put him out here. You've got it, but you're not doing the footwork that I did. Okay, you can get it. I mean, just like, there's an Ikkyo where you go straight up the line, like on the log bridge. That's essentially what you're doing. But that misses this. I want 1, 2, 3. So the real triangle. The triangle is what this changes the line, puts me on your weak line. At the same time, I'm coming in underneath you. And then as it starts to Aiki Sage, I'm also turning my core. And then it just keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. So the purpose of that triangle movement is to put you on a weaker line, okay? It's not that you have to. When we've done other Ikkyo variations, there's the one where you go straight through them, okay? But you have to go deeper. You have to get right in there. And you really have to catch that other shoulder and hip, because if you don't, if you're just here, he hits you, okay? He can hit you there. I have to catch that, so he can't. It's a tougher one to do. It's a little more martial. If they don't know any ukemi, it'll put them on their butt. If they do know ukemi, it'll spin them. Okay. But once again, your problem is always your legs or lack thereof. So when you slide out here, you did that. Then you made this step. And now you're trying to do the whole thing up here. But the triangle movement was, I should be shifting. I should be using this all together. Okay, it's not, and this is endemic in Aikido. Everybody knows Aikido is all about movement. So they move, 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 move. And then they grab the guy, they plant, you grab the guy and try and throw him. The movement is supposed to be most of the throw. It's supposed to be, oh, he's really gone. I just haven't completed it with the rest of the spiral. But if you plant, that all stops. Good. Now, see if you can get that at the same time. So this was fine, this was fine. See if you can get it to happen at the same time. If we were really doing this more martially, this atemi would hit him right at that foot, hit the point of the triangle. You'd be here. And so what everybody does is they kind of go here and then they bring this in. But it really should be the same time. That I have them right there. Okay. And then when I move in, you see this curve, I've already taken that curve with my first movement. The more things become sequential, 1, 2, 3, the more openings there are. If I haven't taken the elbow hand yet, he can drop it. Drop it. Don't take the hand away, that would get you hit, but you can drop it. So I really want to catch this all at the same time, eventually. Katatatori. So another place where this is, and hardly anybody sees it, is Sumio-toshi, okay? They come out here and they try and go in and push this down. Don't let me do it. Don't even make that step yet. It will not do that, not unless he lets it, okay? So The reason I told you not to step automatically is because if I'm pushing here and you do step, it will start to unbalance you. So I could be doing it kind of wrong, but because of the way you're stepping, if I'm deep enough and you step, I can still pull it off. So static, you don't give that to me, okay? There'd be an atemi here that would prevent you from doing that right away anyway. And then here, that was the one. So what had been the elbow hand is now the atemi hand, still simultaneous, one. And I fully expect him to not get hit by this because he's not comatose. Then two, here's your Aikiage. Aikiage, be stronger. Aikiage. Aikisage. Drop into that front knee. Let's do the other side. So 1, 2, 3. And if you know about this one, the wrist bow, that's a form of Aikisage. Instead of this pivot, it's this pivot. Then I drop into it. Okay, go ahead. Okay, so it's not that you can't do this, you can, but you're better off doing that. And the reason I say that is because people typically get in here and they're a little too stiff. And then when they shift their weight, this slides. Well, that was movement that I did that did impart to you. I get this in here, anything that moves back here is, there's no slippage. I'm not losing anything. Strong. And this lets me really get underneath you and come over the top. Now, that said, once you really know it doesn't matter. I can do it here. Of course I can. But the basic is that grip, And I'm not actually grabbing. I'm always clear about that. When I teach the beginners, this is not a grab. This is, I'm making a cup. So there's no slippage. And then I like lots of skin, but I don't want to get down to the muscular skeletal level for reasons that we have discussed at length. So now when I wrist bow, I'm getting this. So it's better to learn this. And frankly, if you can get this, it's going to work better. But once you get it, yeah, if I come in with my elbow and come in, I can do it. That's why I can do it with very little skin. It just depends on how good you are at it. Okay, so I out here. Now, as I make this triangle move, that's when I'm going to make sure that I'm really underneath you. Okay, so see, there's a difference here.
There's a little bit of Aikiage on the initial entry.
Absolutely, just like there was with the EQ. Okay, the moment I touch here, there should be Aikiage happening. It's not here, here, yes. Now let's make it happen. It's part of my movement. When I get here, you're rising. Okay, that's what I call the push-pull. And that is also endemic. So take a look, guys. No, well, you mean they're sad because you're making the same mistakes everybody does. Okay, so if this is not going the same direction that this is, there's a problem. Both of them. But see, everybody wants to use the core turn to make this happen. If you collapse this extension, I just found your feet. This is almost like zombie. This is like Night of the Living Dead with Aiki. Okay. You see what I'm saying? even when your core turn happens, you have 2 points of contact here. And they happen to also connect all the way across his Ikkyo curve. If one is trying to go on a different diameter than the other, you have a problem. There's your Ikkyo curve, and this wants to go this way. Well, this wants to go the same way. It's not like if you have nobody has CDs anymore, but back when they did have CDs, if it's spinning, every point on the outside periphery of that CD is moving exactly on the same curve. I would like these both working on the same curve. Now, this is not the same curve anymore. If I went down here, I could make them the same curve. But that wasn't why it stopped with you. It stopped with you because they weren't the same curve. You were trying to go out here, and it just collapsed here. So try and get this. We've talked about this function of this hand is to actually help put him on his edge. And that's this piece. This isn't really Aiki Sage, it's the horizontal dimension. Okay. So I have the Aiki Sage, which is the elbow, and then I have the horizontal. So you're getting light coming out of the feet. But when this is touching, they're both going on the same curve. That's why it feels there's no dead spots in that curve. You have a dead spot in your curve with him, it equates to stopping dead. Dead spots mean it stops dead. This has to be the same curve. Okay. So if you see when he's being, even when he's being pretty solid, put that foot forward. Okay. I need to get him light and take it up and out and a little behind him. There's going. As long as these run that same curve, he's going to keep going because it's no longer hitting his feet. But if I get him up, I go out and I make him light, and then this curve, so what happened is stopped. He made a balancing step, but it went right back into that leg. Now it's going out here. Nobody's out here. I'm at the point of a V. And so as this foot moves this way, yes, this is going out here and stronger. This is helping stretch you. Okay. When this comes in, it doesn't just go that way. It touches this big curve out there. So this one is really running your curve here, but it's extending way out there. And then this one is touching this curve, but it's extending way out there. So it's another curve. It's a concentric curve. So there's this curve, then there's a big curve. These are extending to 2 different points on that curve. And when I turn now, there's no problem at all. It's not that there aren't variations on these things. You know, I'm talking about really getting here and running this curve. Okay, it doesn't have to be that way, just like the Ikkyo. There's other versions of this. Okay, I could come in here. Okay, where would the Aiki Age be? Right there. So if he's trying to be strong, he's giving me direct access to his center. I'll just take this and go across and hit that shoulder. And then as my core turns, this gonna just drop. And so it's all in here. I mean, it's just doesn't have to be the big kihon waza one. Okay, but I can guarantee you, if you can't do the big kihon waza one properly, you can't do the small one. There's no way. This is a more advanced, using way more intent than physical movement. The kihon waza has the intent, has all of that, the Aiki in it, but you're also using your physical movement to do this. I mean, maybe it doesn't have to go. Maybe not until now. Now it goes. But you're using your big physical movement to do it. And this is your basics. This is what you were all at the Randori intensive, and we kept talking about stepping to the place where that produces the kazushi, because that's what your basics are all about. Later, it's like, sure, I can do that. But it's not, you're not going to teach the beginners that. And you're definitely not going to be able to do this if you can't do this. There's a reason why all the Aikido techniques are big to start with. This is exactly why. Okay, it's like putting something under a microscope and blowing it up so that you can look at every little detail that's in there. Because, by the time you get to the Ikeda Sensei version, it's so small. How are you going to, you're not going to get that. You have to learn to do it big and then shrink it. And as you start making it smaller, make sure it still feels the same as the one that was big. Okay? Because what doesn't change? When I make the physical move smaller, what doesn't change is the strength of the intent. And I'm no longer using just the physical movement along with a modicum of, spiraling. Now it's pretty much just spiraling. Okay, so that's why we do it this way. Let's take a look at another technique on crosshand. Okay, so this time we're going to do hijinage. And this will be a little different because the contact point here won't be your hand. Okay, so there's the atemi, just like, okay, we can skip that and just go to here, or we can do the atemi, just like the atemi would be there for ikkyo, and then go to the elbow, or you can go straight to the elbow. Doesn't matter. Here. Okay. Oh, actually, let's do the omote. It's better to do omote. So let's actually stand this way. So triangle movement again, since that's kind of the theme here. In here, and I'm extending down and out, but as I shift my weight, he starts to rise. As strong, as I step in here, the foot moves first, and then as I shift my weight, this is actually going to create the Aiki Sage. And it's done more with my spine and maybe my shoulder, as opposed to the wrist bow. There's no wrist bow right now. I mean, it might look like there is because I'll mirror it. It's not where the contact point is. Okay. So I'm going to drop straight down. This will help stretch him. Look where my fingers are, just like the Sumiyatoshi. Sumiyatoshi. Hiji, yes, just the other hand. Okay. That stretches him out, makes it harder for him to pull. Pull. Okay. So in here, then it is Aikiage, Aikisage. Aikiage, Aikisage. So if Dave came over and grabbed my finger, stand a little more to your right. There. So I have both of them now. You don't want to throw him while you're still there. Okay, give it a try. So same issue as before with the Sumi Otoshi. What I was saying to Kata-san is that, let's go over by the camera here. I did say to everybody that we need to have these points of contact moving on the same curve. But it's not just the physical. Say here, I'm extending out there, but I connect into her Ikkyo curve here. And then this touch is touching that Ikkyo curve, yes. But actually, there's another curve that's concentric, and it's out there. So here's the small curve. That's her physical curve. There's a big curve. I mean, an infinite number of big curves. How far out can you put your intent? If I put my intent out there and I run that curve, it's effortless. A little harder. I could still do it because I'm on your Ikkyo curve, but you notice one really just, you didn't even feel me doing it. So when I do the cross hand, let's do this side. When I move out here, this is still going out here. And this is going here. I'm at the point of a V. And the V can move when I shift my weight. But what everybody does is, just like they do with the Ikkyo, this starts to collapse. And now you're just doing it here. And you get a little stronger. I can still maybe do it, but if this is touching that curve out there, that's the big curve, you don't even feel it. Okay. So there's the physical curve, and then there's the intent curve. And you'd like the intent curve to be really large. Mary Heine Sensei, way back in the 80s when I trained with her, used to talk about trying to envision these curves going around the room. So you're dealing with your partner physically here, but you're picturing something that's huge. And eventually it's like, oh, the room's too small. Put your mind out like a laser that goes off and doesn't stop. And when you get that, then the techniques really start to get effortless. Good. Now, what you can play with is not projecting out so much. Because once he's up and out here, instead of the big projection, which is how you make them roll, get him there and just drop. My whole weight was on top of your arm at that point. Okay, so that's, once again, it's like the small version of this. I'm on top. Try and return to where you were. You can't. So if I drop into that, and that wasn't with everything else that I should be doing. Just that was the Aikiage, Aikisage. I'm underneath. I'm on top. So once I'm there, this extension's great. All I need to do is drop, and that'll buckle you. And if you're trying not to roll, then I leg sweep you. For a sec, was talking about the concentric curves, okay? And how I'm at the point of a V. So one extension is really that way and one from my center. So my alignment might be this way across the line. That's the triangle. I'm going to complete the triangle. That doesn't mean that this hand can't be out here. So come over here and push gently. This is a solid line that way. This is a solid line. Jerry, come over here and push. A solid line that way. Okay, right into my feet. Thank you. So I was talking about, I'm going to run this curve, but the small ways, thinking of the curve as having something to do with her physical curve, the Ikkyo curve, etc. But actually, if I put my intent out there, there's a concentric curve that's huge. It's out there. If I put my energy out there and I start to turn, she's moving and it's effortless. I mean, there's just nothing. Whereas if you could be running a pretty good curve, okay, be a little stronger. And yeah, it's working now, but I can feel it. It's harder. Whereas if my mind really just goes out there and I run that curve, you can feel the difference. There's no pressure here at all. Okay, so Catherine was just astute enough when I was showing the little one to say, well, is that still compatible with the idea of the big curve? Absolutely. What makes your little techniques, when you shrink the physical part, the only reason you can do that is because your mental, the intent part, is still just as big as it was before. I am visualizing, not physically expressing this now. Now I'm just using my mind. It's out there, and there's a curve there. And I'm going to use my core to express that curve. But physically, I can be smaller now. Does that make sense? That's why you can shrink these techniques. You learn them big. You understand the physical part of it. So, Sumiya Toshi, stretching them out, changing the line. This gives you the atemi shot. Then you're shifting in on their weak line between their feet, completing the triangle. All that's very physical. Okay. Then if you can add the Aiki Age, Aiki Sage, you have really good technique. Okay. Later, right? I'm trying to think of when this would happen. Oh, maybe she's punching me. That's still the same technique. Okay, deflected the punch, entered in, there'd be a strike there, and then Aiki Age, Aiki Sage. To do that, you still have to be huge mentally. And that's the intent. Okay. So we've talked about this before. There's the intent, and then there's intention. An intention is kind of the voltage. It's like, somebody looks at you and you're going to go down. That's the voltage. That's when you look at somebody and you scare them, or you hide it. You don't let them know that you have that strength of intention. That's the will. Okay. You're not going to do any of these things if you don't have a strong will or intention. But the intent is the action of your mind on your connective tissue and their mind and body. Okay. And that has to be huge for the small stuff to work. Okay. So keep going. And like I said, if you really just want to, like Alex doesn't want to fall, so you can actually just take it into here, float him, and just start to drop. There it is. I don't need that big projection. You can see up, down. That was enough right there. Idori again. How about a Riminage? We could do it off Shomen, but we'll do it off this. Okay, grab. So same core turn and step in, but this time step deeper. By the time I turn here, it should be at or behind his hip line. Okay, and then where's the Aiki Age? Well, up he goes. Aiki Age with a little bit of a spiral, which is why he falls into me. Now this hand also, we've talked about the function of this hand is to own this space. Okay. So, Aikiage. See what's happening? When they work together, he falls right in on his Ikkyo curve. Then I turn, and as he comes around, we get to here. There's the Aikisage, still with the core turn. And he goes. If you drop into that fast, he goes down fast. We don't need to do that right now. Okay. So, see him get lighter? Strong. This energy still has to be in. So he gets light. And then I change my angle here and get in here. Aikisage or Aikiage. Aikiage. Look at him float. Get out of the way and just let him fall into the hole. Aikisage. Go ahead. You can feel it. Just the neck hand. Aikiage. And then I get out of the way, and as I bring you in here, before the Aikisage, there's still an Aikiage that's going to go up, but the elbow drops. Then there's the Aikisage. So Aikiage can go the other direction. It can go out like we've been doing, but it can also go in and then out. And that's your Iminage. Okay, goes up and out. And then when I've shot him past my foot, my core turn goes the other way. When that happens, this elbow drops, and there's a, look what that does to him. But I'm still doing the Aikiage. Then when I'm ready to throw, when I make that step, then this begins to go out and down. But most of it's in the other arm by that time. Okay, go ahead. Okay. There's variation after variation. Old school. The head came right into the shoulder, and this could actually be an atemi. And you also clamped, keep your chin down. You don't want my arm on your throat. They clamped the jawline. And then the Aikisage was done with their core. That's a little more old school. You know, you'll see old Sensei did that, and Aikido Sensei definitely did it. In fact, he did it on me once so powerfully I got an adjustment. He got me in that, and then he went, boom, and all I could hear was as all these vertebrae realigned. It's like his Aiki chiropractic. But mostly what we do is this is a little more Steven Seagal without the impact. If I pop that, it's a forearm shot through his head. Okay. So instead of doing that, I let him fall into this. And this is, while he's falling into it, this is doing Aikiage. Now, Aikisage. Okay, so it's a little bigger and looser. I'm not getting in here and using my core power. Okay, one's kind of a jujitsu-y, powerful one that is really only a step away from a neck break. The other one is more atemi. That's, I think, why Sensei was typically much looser about this. It was like, you're coming in here and he's showing you the atemi. And if you went one step past that, you'd have a Steven Seagal forearm coming through your head, a la Above the Law. If you've ever seen that, have you seen it? Our looser, larger version of this is having her fall into an Aikiage. And then it's Aikisage. That makes sense. Go across his back. There's the power way to throw, and then there's just unbalancing it. So there's no question that you can go get him up here and just turn out of it and let him fall backwards. Not a lot of power in that, but you're unbalancing him. Not wrong. But what you'd really like to have is some oomph. Oh, see his back's arched. No relationship between his shoulders and his hips. Now slide out on that line and project. And if you want to drill somebody, that's what you do. Okay, so you should know how to do it with power. It's just unlike the way we did it when we were young and stupid, where we threw hard all the time. Don't think you really want to go through decades of that kind of impact. Probably not that good for you, but you should have it. It's like this. Then you can choose not to if you want to, but it's you want to know how to do it. Well, that's why, you know, very often on these techniques, I'll say, let's just take one hand and see what that hand's doing, you know, and it's just on this one. This is already underneath him. Then I'm opening up. Here's the Aikido. Look at this. Coming out of the floor up here. I'm making him light. Everybody goes this way. This is absolutely no function if he decides to fight it. This is in and up. And then as I turn my core, it's leading him out. But that's not happening with the arm. That's why I was saying before, when I saw that distance change, that's me using my upper body to try and get the horizontal. This is just sitting here. It's going up and down, but it's not moving all over the place. Something like Kotegaeshi. I might lead him around, show him the atemi, and then move out here. But even here, Aikiage, Aikisage. Now there is the wrist bow, drawing in here, entering here. We've talked about that. That helps. But basically, the basic throw, without getting into the weird neutral pivot points with Aiki, you know, with that, is just, so everybody wants to go down. That's where his structure is, even though he's kind of off balance. So Kotegaeshi is still in and up, out on his Ikkyo curve, then down. Then doesn't even hurt his wrist. And this guy, if you try and do this on his wrist, it ain't going. Not in 10 million years. I can't do it. I'm certain that none of you guys can. So here he is. That's the wall. But underneath that and around that and over that is not the wall. And now when I drop, I'm just sliding down the wall. And look what went out. His butt went out. Okay. So you're still, even on the Kotegaeshi, which is a locking technique. Oh, yeah. And this is great as long as they're lockable. But if they decide to either, you know, if they're strong like this and you attack the wrist like this, they'll probably hit you before they decide it's painful enough to go down. It shouldn't even hurt the wrist. So there's still Aikiage, Aikisage in this. Okay, go ahead. So yes, there's this draw and this spiral. Okay. But the big one is underneath you, around and down. Then if I get that, I can also add this draw and wind that up. And I get even more effect out of it. The grabbing hand is the one that runs the what's retreating, what's entering. That's helping the draw. But the matching hand is the one that's doing underneath, around, and over the top. Aiki, Age, Aiki, Sage. They're both doing it, but I can do the Kotegaeshi with just this hand. In and up, out, over the top, and down. Okay, so that's the more important one. As that's happening, this is drawing her in. Okay, but since this is about the Aiki Age, Aiki Sage, find that piece first. Okay, so everybody attacks the wrist. Absolutely nothing. In and underneath you and around. So you get light. So I'm not attacking the wrist. I'm streaming through you, behind you. And then you don't want to go, so you're going to try and push against that. And as you push against it, I let that push you into here. So, see, and this is drawing you in. This is going out, but they're balanced. It's going around the ball. But the ball went up and down. So the ball's rotating. If there was a ball here, I'm rotating the ball, so you're being drawn in here, and this is entering. But the ball itself is going to go up, out, and down. So you go up and out and down, and there it is. And that'll work on people whose wrists are really, really strong, because I'm not running it on the wrist. Okay. It's hard to do this straight on. Okay. You can, but it's hard. Take it out as if you had done the entry we usually do. So it's a little bit of an angle. So now this is the Ikkyo curve. That makes it easier. Then in and up, out and around and over the top. Now you can do it here, but there's the leg. So you really are going to have to float him up and get him out. See, I got to go in more here to try and get his shoulders over nothing but air. Once you know what you're doing, you can do it from any place, but it's like, I can be over here, I can be here, I can be out here, I can be in here, just going. But it'll be easier to figure it out if you have a little bit of an angle. So normally we've let him out here, we've shown him the atemi, we stepped out. So normally we're already on the Ikkyo curve. Then this becomes even easier. You can see it. It's like you went to all the trouble to float them, take them up here, and then your brain says, time to push. There'll be these little, and he gets stronger here. But actually, once he's up, it's really just breathing him down. The shoulders are uninvolved. If I drop into my legs faster, he goes down faster. But you shouldn't see anything in those shoulders, or especially not the. You notice I'm doing this, it's not having an effect. All of this didn't do anything other than tilt me. This and this did. Boy, do you see this? Watch YouTube videos and watch how many teachers are throwing people and they're screwing up their own postures when they do it. You know, oh yeah, you got the guy. But if he decides to do a sutemi waza and do a sacrifice throw, you're gone because you screwed up your posture. And I mean people with big numbers after their names. It's like the posture is a big deal. And that's something Mary said about Saotome Sensei. She said his posture was godlike. I mean, He always had a ramrod straight back unless it was a particular thing where he was using his, like on the Joe spiral. He would wind into that and then come explosively out. When he did that strike, it came out of his legs and his back. Whoa. But that was purposeful. But other than that, the only time you saw him ever bend his back was when he took a roll. He'd be here perfectly straight. He would go into the roll and then there'd be a curve. And then he was already straightening as he came out. As he stood up, it was actually because he was extending up his head. By the time he got back to his feet, he was absolutely ramrod straight again. We want to work that because any kind of tilt screws up your horizontal rotation. Imagine a figure skater decides to do a spin. If they're not absolutely straight, they have multiple centers of rotation now, they'll fall off balance. Has to be straight. It's really not different for us. Wait, stay there. Now see how you're starting to focus on this down? Put your eyes out there. Put your extension out there and turn. There he's gone. See, so this is what happens. Systema guys talk about getting greedy. Right at the point where you think you've got it, all of a sudden you go, okay, now I'm going to do it. I never changed where my attention was. My attention was actually through him, but here, I never let my attention go to the attack, okay? Okay. This time, just basic irimi. Core turn to change the line. And as I go in, here's your Aiki. Here's your Aiki Sage. If I do it in one motion, buckles. When I really do this, the Aiki Sage has happened before he touches me. It's like, see him go up? Even if he doesn't physically do that, he's being nice and amplifying the energy that he feels from me. And you really don't want to amplify it. That's what Watanabe sensei, the guy, the eighth dan, who does all the, energy balls at 10 feet away, He's taught his students to be sensitive and to be reactive, to amplify. So if he goes like that, they fly up in the air over 10 feet away. It's not good training, okay? Might be fun for him to do with the zukes, but it's bad for them, okay? So don't amplify it. In and up, down. If that up happens as he comes in, I'm raising his mind more than his body. So that means it's ready to drop. So you're changing the timing on it. We're not ready for that. Right now, this class is all about doing the static so you can really feel it. So since he's got a death grip on me here, and he might be pushing down, he might be pushing in, he might be pushing up. Usually they're trying to get underneath you, but I don't control that. It's like whatever he's doing. So what I have to be is just solid in my place. If he pulls down, pushes up, pushes in, I don't care. I'm just here. And then my core goes in and up and down, in and up and down. There's your Aiki Sage, Aiki Sage. So float them before you make the step. Now there's the foot we were talking about before, but I haven't moved to it yet. The Aiki Sage happens when I shift to the foot. So the foot moves, then you shift to it. If you try and just step, be strong. And move everything together, you're going to run into them. the foot moves. While that's happening, the Aiki Age is happening. Now I can shift into the foot and just let this fall. Okay, give it a try. Morotatori. Yes, that's why the real one, you know, is there is no lean. I'm dropping right into that foot. And you look where my hand was. If I dropped a rock, would hit those toes. Up, down. Now, shift in, and he goes up. Then drop into your front knee. And when you do it, just drop. Even though he's strong, he's not going to hold your body weight up. Once that energy goes out his butt, he's not going to hold it up. Okay, so wait, he's not floating. Okay, so here's what. Extend into my hand and forget about him. Move your foot in. And as you do that, lead with your hara and your knees. Wait. No, you're already thinking down. Don't think about that. Go in and you're extending down into my hand. Forget about him. There. So that's heavy. If you move in, you're underneath him. He will go up. Now bring your spine over the top of him and he'll start to go down. But you lost this. Yeah.
Thinking too much.
Yeah. Put your hand under my fingers. Okay, so this is the stream. Don't think about this. I'm going to move that by moving me. Look at him go up. So this is just moving because my weight's shifting. If I lead with my hara, he goes up really a lot. That's the spine. You can see my spine changing angles. Then if I start to go into that front knee by taking my head out, I'm on top of him here. If I do it and go a little deeper than that, he buckles. Put your hands on my chest and my back. Okay. Watch him. He'll tilt a little. That's all back, changing the angle of the spine as I shift my weight. Grab. Mike. Oh, let's go a little closer to the camera. So he's going to clamp my chest and my back. So if you watch, if I'm going in, if I'm just extending here, shoulders are uninvolved, very heavy, everything's heavy. If I go in with my hara and my knees, he goes up. But you see my spine changing? Clamp it. I need you not to just relax and let it go, because I want them to see what happens to your Ikkyo curve when my spine changes angles. So if I go in there, he goes that way. I come in, he goes that way. See him on his Ikkyo curve? You can see it's like this is it. Aiki Age, Aiki Sage. So then without the trusty assistant, see if you can duplicate that. So threes, somebody clamp in there. And when you clamp in, don't just, it's not your hands, really give them a center to center connection. So if I'm clamping here, now you change that angle. I want him to be able to see that. If I just let my hands go, the hands will go, but he can't see what it's supposed to see. He should be trying to be strong and maybe not, not let me move very well. Okay, go ahead. Give this a training space within the joints. So really strong and push into me. It's like there seems like there's no room here. But actually within that, there is room. There is room here. But you got to get rid of the tension, because what's allowing him to be strong is still your tension. Okay. Now, I'm trying to turn that. I'm running into his structure. But if everything just relaxes and I turn my core, he moves. So there's levels and levels and levels of relaxation. And the systemic guys used to, they would do this stuff where they'd have you on the floor and they'd have 10 people jump on top of you. You're being squished. You feel like you have no space. And for people like me who have breathing issues, that feeling of compression makes you panic. You feel like you can't get enough air. And the whole point of the training is that's an illusion. There's always space. And so they teach you how to relax and just find the movement inside all of that pressure and squirm your way out. And they do it, you know. I couldn't do it because I would have to start way more gradually than they did, because just having you sit on my chest makes me kick into a panic response. But if you really do relax, it's the same idea as having a panic attack, and willing yourself to focus on your breathing and willing yourself to just say, actually, I'm okay, you know, and you can recover from your panic attack if you have a mental technique to do it. It's not any different here with the physical. He grabs me and my mind's going crazy, you know, really hunker in. And it's like, oh, look at that. There's no space here. But actually within that, there's a lot of space. But you just have to find it. That's why it's important to have people like this in your dojo. So, you know, any of these exercises, feel free to revisit them, you know, before class, after class, whenever, you know, and you keep revisiting them and perfecting them, and then eventually that becomes your default setting for how your body starts to move. Other success in these exercises, you know, I'm as good as anybody I know at explaining what I understand. So if I understand it, I can get you to do it. But if you don't burn it in, it won't be there under any kind of pressure. And you can see that in the Randori intensive. You know, people know lots of stuff, and then under pressure, they can't access those skills because they haven't burned them in. If we slow it down and let people think about it, they can do it. But it hasn't been burned in to become the default setting. And that's what you really need to do with the training. So